Languages are so important for today's society, for business development, for employment opportunities, and for social benefits. If you have 2 or 3 languages, you have that edge when going for a job. I have Brian Johnston, and he is CEO of Active Languages. Welcome today.
Thank you.
So Brian, globalization, the economic crisis, we are seeing so many graduates emigrate and go to different countries seeking jobs. And we've had Irish go to Australia and the States, and they are finding it very difficult within Europe because they don't have other languages. And then we have Spanish and Portuguese heading to Latin America for jobs. So it is a barrier, and if you have 2 or 3, it's just not a problem. And there's so many people who have 2 or 3 languages who get jobs so easily in sales. So in terms of employment, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, language is definitely important, and whether it's Geneva or somewhere else, if you look at Geneva, for example, a lot of people are moving to other parts of the world. Singapore, for example, because the money is in Singapore. A lot of clients are moving their money over there, so companies are moving their people there. You have young people who are needing to learn or wanting to learn Russian. Chinese as well, because that's where some of the markets are. And what's really important is that the level of the language and the skill is vital to getting the job and to actually keeping the job. So we actually have an expression where we say good language skills will get you the job, but great language skills will get you to the top. So, and it's really true, and I think it's even more so true in English, because there are, with globalization, there are people that are moving all over the place. So you have mother tongue English speakers mixing with, let's say, French speakers or German speakers, and so those people in those companies, they need to have a higher level of English just to be able to function on the job. And it's not just enough to have a language skill that gets you by. It's important to be able to function during meetings, during presentations, to be able to answer and ask questions, to be able to participate in the company. And that's really important. And that can make a big difference when it comes to actually keeping the job and then going up in the job. So yeah, it's vital, and it's something I think that is becoming more vital as we go further into globalization.
Okay, and something also is the internet. There are so many online resources for language learning.
Sure.
Now this must present a huge challenge to language schools like yourself. So tell us about this challenge and other challenges that language schools are facing.
Well, yeah, it's true. The internet is great. And, there's just so much information out there, and everybody has access to it. So in a way, it seems like, hey, we can learn anything, anytime, anywhere. And in a sense, that's true. But the problem is that there is so much information out there, and people really have a hard time making heads or tails out of it. So, and in fact, there's a lot of bad information out there. So, from a learner's point of view, they don't really know, which is the right information, which is the good information, and so on. So we feel that the most important thing is really to use the information on the internet, let's say the free information, okay, as a support, as a supplement to structured learning. And because we found that structured learning, meaning great design, great pedagogy, in other words, how much the teacher speaks and how subjects are introduced and that kind of thing, as well as structure, as well as very defined goals. And then of course the learner has to continue and do the lessons regularly. With these things supported by online resources, they can be fantastic. But it's really important that the learner understand what's the difference? And the same thing with companies. And companies, they're really swimming in the sea of language and information madness as well. because there are so many choices out there. So which one do they take? So in fact, what we're finding with companies that they really want to establish a baseline of, let's say, the language level needed for a particular business activity. And once they establish that baseline, they can then focus on the gaps and say, hey, well, in this particular business activity, we have certain gaps that we really need to close. And then we implement a program that'll close those gaps and will work towards, let's say, bringing the level up. And in fact, what they're finding is that a higher level of language proficiency, not only in English, but it depends on the language the company is working in, really translates into higher returns, into higher revenues. And companies are realizing this more and more, and so are individuals. They're realizing more and more that they really need to have these skills to be able to function well. And it's not just skills, let's say, knowing your grammar and knowing it perfectly. It's sometimes it comes down to how well you can communicate around the water cooler or at a social function. Exactly. You know, in a situation where you have, you know, many people speaking, and perhaps there are some jokes, and there's some, you know, references, and all of that can make a difference, because that can, you know, make the difference in a win-lose or a win-win situation, because business is done pretty much everywhere. So yeah, mastering the language skills for the situation is really important.
And Brian, you know, there are many language schools across the world, and Geneva is an international city, so there must be many, many here in Geneva itself. Definitely. So what differentiates your school to the others?
Well, you know, what we do, we're called active languages. And we're called active languages for a reason. And that is because we not only believe, but we structure our courses around a very active kind of approach. In other words, we want the learner to be very involved in the lessons. We want to have a lot of conversation. We want to have a lot of role plays. We even have, in some cases, excursions where the learner, especially in French locally in Geneva, where the learner can learn in class and then have an excursion in a real life situation. But, you know, all of that, as I said earlier, has to be supported by great structure and tried and true methods and ways of doing things. And that's what we do. So what we're really great at is that we specialize in understanding the needs of each person or each company, and then we can target those and create courses that are really tailored for that, very targeted courses, so that that person or that company can reach the goals in a very short time. So that's quite unusual, because usually courses are really cookie cutter out of a particular kind of a book or so on, but in fact we really like to tailor it because everybody's different, in fact.
Brian, that is true. Everybody is different, and thank you very much for speaking to us today. It's a very important topic.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Dukascopy TV. Well, do stay tuned, as coming up next we have an economist from the ILO, and we also have Bruno Estier. See you soon.